Rika, stop it, for real.
Someone has to be the bad guy. If you want friends, you've got them.
So I can't really blame anyone else, and I don't have any regrets. If you look at it that way, you won't beat yourself up about it.
That's all I know how to do!
We are surrounded by universal constants all the time. Take this video right now. The speed of light, photons bursting out of this screen and into your eyes, is 299,792,458 meters per second. The speed of sound of these words in analog waveform replicated by discrete digital output states in rapid succession is 343 meters per second. Much slower, but imperceptibly so at this distance. The certainty of age, the number of seconds you live ticking up one by one with each pixel of that red bar, just as mine did in creating it. And hate, that no matter what I say, how I say it, or how quickly I say it, this video will end up hated by someone, somewhere, likely for no reason more than that it was said by me. Death, change, taxes, physics, there are many things that are true in all times and all places, but the most interesting to me is always hate. One which we all know and agree is terrible for the world, and one which is undeniably our choice, yet it persists into eternity anyway, taking its place among the photons and sound waves making their way to any god's eyes and ears as they mourn forgotten love. One which couples with the worst we can't choose, with age, with disease, with tragedy, celebrating the results like it's a sport. One which cycles up and down with tragedy and prosperity, and unfortunately right now seems to be one of those century-defining upswings, a stain on the lives of anyone not shielded by sport utility suspension and a lazy boy recliner. Hate leaves the acrid taste of vomit in someone else's mouth, the acidic sting in someone else's throat, as the baby birds grow up without ever swallowing their first meal, simply passing it on again and again. The point of this video is to justify that sentence, to present the denizens of hate as the pathetic things they are, as old but still baby birds, helpless, flightless, clamoring for someone else's regurgitation directly into their gaping maws, understandable for the origins, the young, inexperienced status no one can avoid, for the mothers and fathers who never return to the nest, but undeniably detestable for forms which deny that, geriatric bodies with a chick's chirps. This video will feature 3 female characters simply because they were the ones on my mind, the ones I could find pieces of my past self within. Feel free and be encouraged to leave your own examples in the comments. First up is Madoka Magica, making probably its 15th or so appearance in one of my videos, so as always the synopsis will be brief. In this world, girls in vulnerable situations, from car accidents to unrequited love, are offered a deal. In exchange for becoming magical girls and fighting off witches, unseen monsters which cause hate, disasters, and more, they receive one wish, which they always use in relation to that situation which started it. They need grief seeds to maintain magic in their lives, which they only get from killing witches, sealing their duty as survival itself. Turns out though, the cycle is more complete than they think, with the ultimate fate of every magical girl being to turn into the witches they fight due to the inherent despair of wishes, how little they knew and how not even universal power could overcome human complexity. The more they hold true to the desires which created the wish, the sooner they turn. Of course, this isn't known to them when they begin though, it's figured out by each new class in terrifying fashion. But onto the most important characters for today. We start with Sayaka, a new magical girl bent on seeing through the kind of justice her now dead mentor, Mami Tomoe, presented to them, a false perfection she can never reach as she grapples with the selfishness of her own wish. Did she heal her longtime friend Kyosuke just so that he could be free from his grief and maybe find love for her? Kyoko Sakura is a veteran of this game, long detached from her wish and the feelings which drove it, showing up in Sayaka's life to berate her for such foolishness. Constantly snacking and playing arcade games while Sayaka is out fighting witches, Kyoko is a picture of the exact selfishness Sayaka is trying to desperately prove she isn't, all while being told by it that she should be. As she says when Sayaka is fighting off a familiar, a less powerful but soon-to-be witch.
That ain't no witch, it's a familiar. It ain't gonna have any grief seeds on it. It's gotta eat 4 or 5 people before it turns into a witch.
In short terms, allow 4 or 5 people to die so that she can have an easier life. Kyoko quite clearly isn't a good person. And yet, there's already a contradiction in just the first few minutes of her character. When speaking with Kyubei earlier, the source of these skewed contracts, she seems only interested in taking over the territory that Mami's death opened, one which we can assume is beneficially large because of how dedicated she was, meaning more grief seeds and easier survival. But if this was truly the case, then why does she explain the premise she's working under to Sayaka at all? If she was simply trying to make life easier, why not just go for the kill and be done with it? Or at least keep it private so Sayaka will die off quicker if Kyoko doesn't want to do it herself. This statement is harmful to regular people, of course, but it's beneficial knowledge for Sayaka, who can now survive easier herself if desired, at Kyoko's expense. While it is followed up with violence when Sayaka denies the invitation to be more selfish, I think that helps explain what this was, a test of sorts. The world of magical girls is full of idealistic people, the kind Kyubei would choose because they make it seem even more appealing to everyone down the line, just like with Mami Tomoe. And if we consider Magi a record to be any kind of indication, this more or less holds true. This makes Kyoko the outcast, the magical girl lonely in her selfish ideals. So when she's relaying this information, she's testing. What kind of magical girl is Sayaka? When she hears this information, what will she do with it? Will one of them finally understand the suffering that she's been alone with for so long? The curse of logical selfishness. The roots of this go back to how she became a magical girl to begin with. Her father was a religious man with a church and a following who began to believe that the teachings hadn't kept up with the new, modernized world. Trying to revolutionize them to bridge this gap, he's quickly labeled as a heretic and ignored, leading to his family of 4 spending many nights with very little to eat, while he desperately tries to claw back any following to no avail. Kyoko is offered a wish by Kyubei, making it as such.
I wanted everyone to listen to my dad and take the stuff that he was saying seriously.
In response, he gains a huge following, growing each and every day as people cling onto his every word, cling against their will. What he says doesn't matter at all, they only appear because of the wish. The eyes on him are all blind. Uncovering what's happened, he refuses this role, driven insane by the part he played in essentially mind control, eventually ending his wife and other daughter's existence and following with his own. Kyoko's wish for someone else destroyed her family, stained her entire future in the possibilities forever lost, every moment of love that she'll now never receive. She vows to only live for herself in response, stating things like this.
I promised myself I'd never use magic to help anyone else ever again. This power is mine, for me and me alone.
What's really interesting about that statement is how it's said, as if it was a solemn oath taken to better the world, a responsibility she must see through in justice. Because to her, it is. Help will always hurt. The show gives example, time and time again, in the wishes characters make for one another, that we can never truly understand what's going on in their head to know if our wish is correct. Why? Well, because we don't even know what's going on in our own heads. No one does. Take Sayaka's situation. She debates whether or not to use her wish on Kyosuke, since she lives a perfectly comfortable life herself and doesn't have to cure a need like Kyoko did. That's guilt. And she wonders if it's selfish to do so, since she's in love with him but he's too depressed for anything else. Maybe healing him will make that crush come true. That's desire. She finally makes the wish when he expresses his worst pain yet, that he can't even enjoy the music he loves anymore. That's love, caring that he can get the thing he wants. And then when she hears him playing again and swears she'll never regret her wish after hearing this talent enter the world once more, that is respect. One of the reasons she struggles so much is because we want simple answers to our motivations so that we can make equally simple decisions and moral judgments. did I do something good or bad? But our motivations are just much too complex for that to happen, and having 4 answers feels like having none. It's not one of those things that led her to do it, it is all of them at once, but that's complex enough that she dies never really knowing. If the inside is that much of a mess, how could anyone on the outside know it well enough to truly help? Applying this to Kyoko, does she know why her dad chose to preach as his life's work? No, because even he wouldn't. But she does know that it requires people listening to him. She knows that in extreme detail now. And so if she wants to help, that's all she can do. Focus on the simple what and not the difficult why. Plus, it's likely that Kyoko's father said something like, "I just need people to listen to me," around the dinner table as they had no food, because at that moment in time, with his children starving in front of him, that was truly the most important thing. It was desperate, it was immediate, it made nothing else matter, and so that's what he expressed, needing to maintain a confidence that he could save those he promised to provide for. How much does a stranger's soul across tens of years matter when his daughter's life could end in weeks? Even if he could know exactly why he chose this path, in this exact moment, it simply doesn't matter, so why would he express it? Meaning changes moment to moment as the situations around us shift and shape us in turn. He might believe that all he needs is people to listen during literal starvation, but will he during a feast, when he has time and energy to speak to that soul and think about purpose? As that hierarchy of needs is moved up, well, so do our desires. What we once expressed and acted on was born from a self who no longer exists, making a once glorious wish into total despair. The very premise of the show. So not only is the why foreign to even us, but it's too temporary to ever be understood, let alone expressed. And even if it was, the expression would be out of date. Even if Kyoko made the perfect wish for him, it still may have turned out like this. And even if she did hear anything else, would she have understood it? That is, even if someone could accurately know and express themselves in every moment, we are still a different self that must hear and re-understand those words. And I don't think a child has a good grasp on needing a fulfilling career because they don't even know what it means to be part of the workforce yet. In a simpler world, mostly full of reliance and pleasure, they lack the perspective to understand what's behind his words. Even if she did hear him say, "I want to update the teachings to better fit people's lives because I think this could save their soul," it would probably still translate to, "I need people to listen to me," because that's what a younger mind could understand. Plus, her perspective has a bias to hearing this. She isn't some random girl off the street, she is his daughter. She respects him and what he's doing inherently because of that. To her, the baseline is that he is correct, quite literally the authority of her world. She doesn't need to wish for him to have the right things to say. He already has those. People just need to respect him like she does and listen. This makes a further bias because, as she says,
I hated that nobody gave my dad a chance and tried to understand what he was talking about. I got mad, like really pissed off.
It's not just that it's illogical to her, it's that others being illogical makes her hate them, and as such unconsciously wishes to maybe even harm them in a way. To make them brainless listeners out of hate. She could only ever wish for them to listen because anything else is outside of how she naturally perceives her situation, the assumptions that underlie her thoughts. So we don't know ourselves, which are ever-changing, so no one else can, and even if they could, they will always be biased in multiple ways. The task is seeming impossible. Misunderstanding and pain are certain consequences to the impulse to assist. This is why helping oneself becomes Kyoko's solemn duty, because it provides every single person with help while cutting out the negative aspects of thinking we know each other enough to share in the assistance. If everyone is looking out for themselves, sure, conflict will arise, people will be hurt, but that was going to happen anyway, and worse if they tried to help each other, because instead of one person getting what they wanted at the expense of another, no one would have gotten what they wanted at the expense of both of them. And when that person does get what they want, it'll be what they want, not what someone else thinks they want. So long as everyone else keeps this up, then everything will balance out truthfully. they are now taken from, repeating in an endless cycle a karmic destiny.
If you wish for something good to happen, a whole lot of bad stuff's gonna happen too. Good, bad, everything zeroes out.
This is why she's so confident in what she states, presenting it with such arrogance and snobbery. This isn't just some philosophy she found and decided to follow. To her, it's how the world itself works, akin to physics. It's how life begins and then ends one day to fuel the next one, how a chemical reaction distributes energy to reach a balanced state, how the entire universe is trending towards total entropy, heat death, where unquestioning balance ceases all action. At least, believing that it is natural is beneficial to her because it makes such a mindset easier to justify and perpetuate. When she's fighting with Sayaka and saying things about the food chain and the natural way of things, the point isn't actually that those statements are true. It's that arguing with them places one at a disadvantage. If you align your beliefs with things taken as common knowledge, you get maximum results for minimum rewards. You get to spout off things everyone just assumes are correct, while your opponent has to try and disprove what are taken as basic assumptions. After all, isn't like the circle of life grade school stuff? And having to debate it, they can be seen as pedantic and silly. Plus, it removes nuance by making things black and white with its supposed truth, and even more with its brevity, an air of simplicity, leaving no room for some area in between the way that children's education does because they can't understand it yet. Even though all things are simply spectrums on which we've drawn lines. Her arrogant tone is a part as well, invoking Sayaka's rage from being talked down to, treated as a child, only making things more unbalanced with one who's calm and the one who's angry. It only makes Kyoko seem all the more superior, able to believe that the ideas are what creates the anger, that she's hated for speaking a deeply held, even if unpleasant, truth. Her topics, and even more her attitude, a far cry from the child who once fought evil from the shadows with no credit without question for her father's sake, were designed to get these results, to set a supposedly undeniable premise for how she could come to terms with her mistake through that very idea of balance. Because not only does one want to prevent this mistake in the future, but if possible, they'd like to erase the mistake to begin with. For many, like a case we'll see later, this means denying responsibility, believing that it happened to them and not by them, because while the results will always hurt, to believe one caused those results is even worse. Kyoko could do this. She was starving, watching her father fail time and time again with no relief in sight. This wasn't like Sayaka acting on desire. This was plain and simple need for survival, and along comes Kyubei offering a solution to literally any problem just as she has her greatest one ever. Like Mami, who was offered her wish on the brink of death, there really wasn't a choice but a pattern of coercion and manipulation by Kyubei. But what makes Kyoko interesting is that she doesn't do this. She owns her wish as a choice and stands by it, saying,
If you live for yourself, you only got yourself to blame. Can't really blame anyone else, and I don't have any regrets.
But going even further, this isn't owning it so that she can get better in the future, but so that she can get better in the past. She finishes that statement by saying,
See, if you look at it that way, you won't beat yourself up about it.
That's a pretty explicit statement that the point is to avoid pain, and the source of her pain is in the past. So how does this work? Well, responsibility is key. Sure, if it just happened to her and not by her, then it wouldn't be her fault, but it would still be terrible, held in perpetuity as the worst thing that ever occurred to her. Its power would never lessen, the equation would never balance. But if she did it, if she had some choice in it and her life, then she can also balance it out. She's still got powers for this wish, something almost no one else has that provides a great advantage. She'll never have to work a day in her life for anything, and her task of survival can be one night of work, maybe once a week if she uses these powers well. Owning her mistake and keeping some part of it alive allows her to lessen how bad it was by increasing how much it provided, exactly why she's always stacking and gaming and being selfish. The more she takes for free, the more worthwhile it was. This will have to go on for a long time to work. After all, she lost an entire family, every moment of joy and love, past, present, and future. These powers cost her a lot. But so long as she chooses them, fills each moment of them with pleasure from them, then that cost is buried further and further under a pile of hedonism. As she says,
I can do whatever I want with my powers.
You think you got what you paid for, huh?
Hell yeah, I did!
but there's a problem with this in her situation. It requires living for a good long while to even things out. A full life of pleasure, not just a life of pleasure. And here comes Kyubei, finally explaining to them that their souls are actually in these gems, and that a normal human can take one and throw it away and essentially kill you because the soul gets too far from the body to function. That she isn't as invincible, as guaranteed to have a future as she thought. If even powerless Madoka could kill a magical girl, then they're actually quite vulnerable. She's afraid that maybe she won't be able to make the decision as worthwhile as she thought. Then add to this how lonely her mindset is. Yes, eating Pocky endlessly while acing arcade games, but realizing that to do so means you've done the same thing day in and day out, all alone. And that's how you get a change in how she speaks, where suddenly she's saying things like this.
'Cause you and me, we both made the same mistake, didn't we? We're magical girls! There's no one like us! Nobody can do what we do!
This is the first time us has entered her vocabulary, because risk has entered her life, shown her contradictions, and forced her to grow and expand what she believes. It's still for some level of selfishness. She hasn't abandoned that principle, because at the end of the day, now that death looms larger, having allies is simply important to oneself. If Homura hadn't cared for Madoka in this moment, Sayaka would be dead after all. Those friendships are simply what saved her life. But it's also that the extreme level of this threat, the increased fight for her life, has done what hunger once did, pulled her back down and made simpler things more present. Yes, there is no way for two people to see within each other's minds and draw some endless, beautiful connection without moments of pain, without an eventual loss. We will always substitute our will for others, and if not, we'll misunderstand them, and if not, we'll simply fail to see it through. Eventually, a bad thing will happen due to love. But despite that, there are some near constants we can learn about everyone, those more basic things brought to the surface. As this situation stressed, we can understand that no one wants to be simply thrown away, right? None of us want to starve. None of us want to freeze. Sure, you can find exceptions in Kafka's hunger artists and penal colonies, but it's nearly 100% certain that no one will object to food they know is safe, to warmth they know will save them from frostbite, to someone saving their life. Even if we can't help them fulfill their purpose or become their true self, we can help them survive to do so. These magical girls, they all share in the same condition that their souls have been separated, that they will one day fall to despair and become witches. These are facts of their existence, guarantees. And so, aren't they the one place where we are certain help can always be good? Even if Sayaka and Kyoko are totally different people, with this greater threat than scarcity, the most selfish thing for them is to be alive and assist each other. Her mindset opens and grows. And this reveals one of its side effects, delusion of the self. When all we're doing is helping ourselves, when our company is just some snacks in the bright lights of the games, we start to become very rigid. To get this perfect score is expressly to have limited oneself to this song again and again, to one thing rather than the many, to be only oneself unexpanded by others. Going on for so long like this, exposed to nothing but her own ideas in a cycle, Kyoko slowly turns from a real person into a caricature, finding the most efficient way to follow her principle of pleasure in cartoonish gluttony, instead of just being a real person. We see this because once she finally opens up to Sayaka, once she's challenged on her own contradictions by Sayaka, she speaks more openly, expresses more about herself. After all of that, that's the only time when she can say to Madoka, someone she went out of her way to finally meet for once because of all of this,
Nobody knows, that's why I want to try. It'd be like one of those stories where love and courage triumph and stuff. The reason I became a magical girl was because I love stories like those. And Sayaka was the one who reminded me.
After all, how could she remember this when her only reference was herself, where there is no story to her life, no love to overcome the evil? Sayaka simply being there, being someone else, expands this world, presents more opportunities for things that could be considered a pleasure, and not just physical ones, but mental ones, emotional ones, social ones. It expands how well we can follow the principle of just looking out for oneself. Just like complex motivations, we can help them and us at once to balance out the costs. The real issue is that this greater world takes greater effort, more risk for more reward, more chances to make mistakes that then require even more balancing out. But isn't it worth it to be this much brighter, to be a real person who can meet others instead of a statue keeping them away? She's seen through dream catchers here because she's dreaming, thinking of something that doesn't already exist for the first time in years. We only know about these things, these dreams worth chasing, when another shape can show that ours lacks them. I guess we avoid this because dreams hurt. They prove that we are incomplete. But either way, we are. Clearly, Kyoko was, she just couldn't see it. So what choice do we have but to pick the one that advances us at least? And the final bit of proof the show leaves us with, to do it as soon as possible. With this dream in mind, they set out to try and save Sayaka, now a witch, convinced that the voice of a best friend could call her out of this shell of despair. And they fail. Because being a better person doesn't simply mean things will work out, it just means there's a chance. A chance that would have been greater if any of this had been known weeks earlier, if the first step had been taken before the end was already reached. No one comes back from being a witch. The only thing to do is to embrace it head on, let down the shield and start balancing that equation as widely and as greatly as possible, accounting for every loss such a thing will incur. To help each other before it's too late. Continuing my redemption tour of Wonder Egg Priority, one I started a few weeks ago with a video that included Momoe, today we have Rika Kawai.
As in kawaii, cause I'm a cutie.
She's this world's version of a magical girl, given the chance to fight for the souls of others who remove themselves from life, in order to bring one of them specifically, a friend, back to life. In Rika's case, this is Chiami. Now, friend is in heavy quotes for this pair because, well, Rika isn't a great person. When she meets Ai, the show's protagonist, the first thing she does is soften her up to ask for money, before then following her home to eat her food and interrupt her other friendships, putting her in danger when they fight together, all while talking about Chiami as her wallet. As she presents it, she's trying to simply save her to get back that relationship, someone who will keep her flush with cash. Rika is not a good person. However, when she and Ai enter this dream world where they fight at once, it's Rika's which they share rather than Ai's, explained as Rika having stronger feelings for the person she's trying to save than her counterpart does. Clearly, by this reaction, it seems nonsensical.
Are you kidding? There's no way that's true. Besides, she calls her friend a wallet. It's wrong.
But a world that digs into the subconscious clearly has some reason for what it does. So what's lurking beneath the surface here? Rika is the child of a single mother, with only one memory from before her father left, if she's to be believed. Her mother is, well, a person, that's for sure, making a promise to Rika that one day she could meet the man, despite not actually remembering who it is. She's forgetful and imperceptive, hosting customers at the bar downstairs, while her daughter harms herself upstairs, waking up hungover as Rika leaves for school day after day, it seems. From this flashback we see, this seems to be a pretty constant pattern dating back years, proving it as the kind of environment that she was raised in. One where she could be more or less invisible, simply a task someone else had to keep alive. It's likely a part of why she became a junior idol. She was never on the popular scene, but it was a space of attention where, instead of being forgotten, people would line up just to shake her hand for a moment. And in some cases, again and again and again, as Chiemi did. While there can be some awkward interactions from this for sure, when for most of your life you've been an afterthought, of course it would feel good to know that someone will spend 95% of an evening just waiting in line for the 5% that comes afterwards. But this is exactly where the problem begins. This attention has a cost to someone. Each one of those times Chiemi met her cost not just time, but money, the stuff of scarcity for a kid. The only way she made enough was by shoplifting and selling what she stole again and again, something Rika eventually witnessed her doing. for nothing more than literally a song and a dance. Quite literally Rika just doing her job as well. Someone found her valuable enough to risk her future by stealing, the potential of getting caught and getting a record from all that would follow from that. It isn't value, that's responsibility, a cost to being who you are when someone else loves it too much. To be worth the money they're spending, that suddenly you feel even worse when you're having a bad day because you can't give them what they paid for, so you just learn to set yourself aside and seem fine. A behavior we see Rika exhibiting time and time again in the future, where she goes from pain, whether physical or emotional, right into a change of topic, into happiness, where she relies on rehearsed lines and intros, saying that opening quote multiple times. Because social muscle memory can take over for an exhausted self, shaking Ai's hand just like at one of those events. Considering this is the first time she's being paid proper attention, it only makes sense that she finds it as a cost to others. And immediately, someone shows that if she does it well, if she makes herself worth a lot, then it's only going to increase the cost to them. Even if it's not her fault, if she's not choosing it, it's her actions that have some control over what drives their actions, which create the degree to which they'll risk themselves. Isn't that terrifying? To know that each and every action can have such a big impact on the people around us. Just someone who didn't grow up witnessing a parent willing to sacrifice for their kid, who probably stayed course on their own pleasure each time. This is almost alien. No one should cost someone else anything. She needs Chiemi to stop to prevent this terrible feeling, but she can't just tell her this directly because, well, she'll probably just say that it's worth it. Hide the behavior and say she stopped, or if she can, get a job and work away her youth, which still feels like too much of an impact. You can't rely on someone else to change their behavior for certain, leaving yours as the only option. Pulling on what she does know, a mother and father alike who are clearly very focused on superficial things, she decides on saying this.
I said I'd be too embarrassed to be seen with a fatty like her, and to never come back.
Because if she makes Chiemi hate her, then the problem will be solved, right? At the expense of how people see her, she can stop feeling responsible for someone else's behavior. The only way to prevent the cost of care is to not be cared for, to make yourself not worth any risk. But in this case, it's too late, as Chiemi simply takes the words to heart. She starves herself, eventually dying from this, leaving behind a corpse with nothing but skin and bone. In torturous fashion, it was too late. Someone cared for her, and there was no way out of it. No way for someone to not get hurt once it had already started. And so she should never let anyone care about her again. This is why Rika is such an openly awful person. It's the only way to live a life that isn't totally solitary and bland, while also avoiding the responsibility of other people's feelings. She wants to be around people, to have fun in this wide world we've created, to be loved and adored as that profession taught her, just as anyone would. She's a kid, not a philosopher. So she gives a good intro and then asks for money. She tries to be entertaining and go at the bit, even if it means barking like a dog, but also eats all the fruit, even the ones you were about to grab. She wants to look good, but seem rotten underneath. Someone worth keeping around, but only worth looking at, not worth loving. These shallow relationships are a compromise to try and be loved without the responsibility of being loved. It also fulfills a recurring theme of these kinds of characters. It makes things make sense by simplifying them. It's not just that she's unfamiliar with love, but that the absence of it entails hate, not from others but from the self. When no one else spends time on you, even if it's only out of indifference rather than hate, what else are we supposed to think as children trying to make sense of the world than the black and white dichotomy a simple mind can handle, learned through stories all about clear good and clear evil, that no love must equal hate? You'll notice a lot of bad logic is false binaries. But leaning into this falsehood means simply confirming that the world is as thought and moving on, to maintaining the mindset of a child, never challenging that original perception. Well, going against it means having to relearn how one sees the whole world, the basis of the relationships, and, well, everything. To grow up is a daunting task. And so Rika leans into it for that simpler path. To be hated, but to know what she is rather than wondering. If everyone finds her awful, then all of her pain makes sense. She simply deserves it. Instead of the vast causality of the world to consider, it simply is. This shallowness of relationships is also a connection to her past, though, another reason why she keeps them as such. That one memory she has of her father is him apparently saying to her,
A beautiful woman doesn't need a wallet because someone will always offer to pay for her.
It's a specific kind of mindset to say the least, and it's all over Rika's behavior, saying things like this time and time again.
I'm a woman, so sometimes I get swept up in the moment by my feelings.
These statements, they place her in a very small box, devalue her in many ways, rightfully called out by some of the others as belonging in the 50s. And that wouldn't feel great. But he's still her father, and that can't change. And she simply wants to make herself someone her father would agree with, be proud of. Even if it hurts to believe herself smaller, more helpless, it feels good to know that if he met her, he would smile and be proud. It trades a value she would have to find in a wide open world, outside of that box, for one most people take as a guarantee. It's one of the most valuable things. A love from family, a supposed starting point before all else. It only makes sense that she goes for that then, even if it means a more limited, awful self. It's the starting point. Absence is something that drives this imagined bond as well. The fact that her father isn't around is exactly why she can love him, be so confident in pleasing him, because he's never been there to show himself human like her mother has had her whole life to do. In reality, he's probably quite similar to her. They chose each other for that short span of time for a reason. It's simply that she hasn't witnessed that yet to confirm it. But does anyone want to choose to have two awful parents instead of just one? This is how her hate against her mother becomes a shield as well, going so far as to say to her,
He left, remember?
I remember he left you.
Well, that's a cruel thing to say to your mother.
she isn't a good mother, that much is clear. And we don't know exactly what's happened across the years where she's missed so much of a daughter suffering so clearly. But she doesn't forget Rika's birthday, even if she's not awake for it originally. And sometime within cleaning up the bar for that night, she goes out and gets a cake for her just the same. It's Rika who ignores it to go upstairs without a word. Sometimes there is care there, but it isn't being let in. And it's because that nuance which could make it a decent relationship is a threat to the possibility of a perfect one somewhere else. If it's true that her mother is the worst person in the world, then what she said makes sense. The mother was left, not her. Her father could have loved her more than anything in the world, but the woman he was with was just so awful that there was no choice but to leave her, and anyone could see that because of how awful she was, right? Her dad exists out there somewhere, loving her, ready to show up and make her life better, an instant escape from all this pain. He just can't show up because the mother is so awful. This possibility is greater than what could be gained from the reality around her, and so she clings to it by hating her mother as much as possible. This is probably why her greatest fear is being left behind, driving her conflict with the other girls. As they grow closer and closer to their goals, she remarks,
What if we just didn't buy eggs? Chiemi made the choice to die. It might be true that I was the reason, but that isn't fair.
It's a pretty loaded statement, most notably going against all of that pain she felt from that responsibility of love by throwing away her chance to make it right, to remove what caused so much more self-hate. For something like that to seem alright, and especially to directly acknowledge a desire to leave Chiemi behind, then something of pretty hefty value must be forming in these relationships she has, strong enough in their worth to cover for all that guilt to forget the past. That's exactly why she doesn't want them to save their old friends, because that means changing this valuable arrangement. Old relationships coming back means doubt to new ones, and how time is split, and how someone from outside this group will influence them, with how they'll no longer have such a strong reason to be by each other's side like this. They need to fight together, but fighting together eventually separates them. Slowly, she's ended up intertwined, with everyone looking past that evil surface and finding good underneath, with their hearts and minds intertangling and secrets revealed and tears seen. In short, there is no protection from hurt now. Whether later or now this state will end, even if it happens slowly across years of drifting apart, eventually there's still a moment of realization that hurts just the same. What she's pleading for is an impossible stasis to avoid this now undeniable future. And so, she's caught between tactics here, open for moments at a time, but still extremely guarded, sharing herself, but in a way that almost feels more like weakness than anything else because of this guarding. Take the night at the batting cage she shares with Ai, speaking truthfully about her father and how it all makes her feel, throwing frustrations into missed swings, but then running away when she starts to cry. It's never letting anyone be around her for long enough to actually comfort her, never hearing them say it's okay to cry and that the voice she's trained inside herself calling her terrible is wrong. So what else can she see these moments as but pathetic weakness when she's never been around to hear the opposite? It's what she's always done. In all of this fear, the closer she gets to something good, the more she simply feels weak as well. With each day of relaxation comes an equally great night of fear. Living a genuine life for her has become coated in anxiety and stress. I think this is why she so easily falls to an escape from pain when it shows up. One of the monsters being a cult leader who convinced this girl's family to give up all of their worldly possessions and themselves and find a better life in the supposed next one. They invite her in too, leading her with the statement that it could be easier, that she could be done having to try so much all of the time, and she begins to give in because she's so exhausted. This is the only way she can truly relax, right? The world has been so awful for so long, the worst of herself presented outward, hating it and others, making every interaction steeped in negative emotions, making the world seem even worse than it was, and making this seem all the more logical because of that. She's already too far gone after all, isn't she? This is the natural end of hating oneself as a shield. When the mindset becomes untenable, the life wants to end. But one thing doesn't think so. Monin, the familiar she was given to help her fight. While she adores and loves it, as they all do, she was also neglectful to it, leaving it out on her lap as she prepared to scar her body once again, and simply calling it back when she wanted to, ignoring it and its love. Someone who knew it would imprint on her, ignoring it to give into an escape from the mind through an alteration of the body. To her, it sounds very familiar. It's a much different addiction from her mother's, and this skips over much of that nuance, but the purpose is the same, a moment away from one pain they consider greater, the pain of life itself. Despite this though, Monin still finds her worth saving and does so, allowing Rika to come out of the battle alive, returning to her friends and her mother with a brand new perspective. That even a mother who finds herself too far gone has someone out there who loves her anyway. That even who she thinks to be the worst in the world, herself, still has something willing to risk its life for her. That no matter how awful she acts, others won't be. They'll see the genuine self underneath and care for her anyway. So what's the point in being the worst? If it doesn't do what it was meant to, then it's just choosing pain for no reason, carving a selfish path to the grave. One may as well just care in return and fight alongside them to lessen the chances of a bad end, to push it further out. With Monin's help to survive, she prevails and comes back home. She returns to her mother that night and finally accepts the cake, now a bit stale, finally spending enough time together to hear the mother's fears that one day Rika will leave her too. And she agrees. One day she will. One day all things will.
I feel like you'll abandon me too, Rika.
But not right now.
Her mother might not be perfect, but if she can be loved, the person she thought was so awful, then so can Rika. Before anything else can be worth loving, we have to believe it exists after all. To have something real, even if unideal, a stale cake rather than no cake at all, it's better than starving, right? Now, where the other characters today were trending towards being truly terrible people, our next one, Black Lagoon's Revy, truly is. A murderous nut who delights in taking others' lives, whether they're soldiers, gangsters, or civilians. She works for the Lagoon Company, a transport merchant 4 members strong, delighting in the dangerous work and hating the simple jobs. They're based in Roanapur, a fictional city in the south of Thailand, home to every scum imaginable. Former Russian military to South American cartels and everything in between, a place where a noose hangs at the entrance to mark the status of every citizen. already dead, the eternal stasis they find in their hatred. But despite the strength of this, Revy's life is changed by the arrival of Rockero Okajima, eventually nicknamed Rock, a Japanese businessman she kidnaps when stealing a data disk from his company. Abandoned by that company, his only path of survival is to assist these mercenaries in fighting off a much greater force, and in succeeding he leaves his 9-to-5 life behind to be one of the only alive in the city of the dead, an outsider trying to save the vulnerable people who have the misfortune of ending up there as well. This hobby of his, one which always fails, whether it's targeted at orphans from the Ceausescu dictatorship or daughters of Yakuza, brings him into conflict with Revy, someone who believes that such idealistic thinking is worthless, against the natural way of the world. As she says,
"What do we really value in life? God? Love? Don't make me laugh. It's money, of course, and guns. With these two things, the world's a great place."
And yet, just as with the others, there's a contradiction in her words and actions. For how much she hates his attempts at saving other people, she has no rebuttal for his arguments when he has the backbone to actually make them. She says that if he gets kidnapped, she won't help, and then rushes to save him time and time again. And whenever he goes on his helpful tangents, she's always right by his side, the gun making it possible. Sometimes she even outright goes against herself to do this, like here.
Revy, I have to do something. Please, we have to at least warn her.
Hey, Rock.
She's just a kid.
Enough. She's in our world now, and Balalaika will sort things out here like she does. Forget what I just said. So lead the way, boss.
It's clear that there's something hidden beneath all of that hate. So what is it? Revy was raised in New York during its rougher periods of the 70s and 80s, although raised is a strong word for it, with no mention of a mother and a father who was abusive to say the least. And as a Chinese American, she was willfully ignored by any of the systems meant to help people, subject to even more beatings by the police when they weren't simply looking past her. Originally, she believed the world could be better, but after so much pain finds that belief untenable, saying,
Before I knew better, I clung to God and prayed to him every single night. I believed in God right up until that night the cops beat the hell out of me for no reason at all.
At this point, she takes the only next logical step. The people who abuse her can do so because they have power, achieved through money and guns. So if she wants to stop being abused, which God clearly didn't do, then the only certain way is what they proved works and that her own actions can do, to take a gun and enact pretty blunt violence on them. Those who took can finally be taken from. This logic is how she makes sense of a senseless world. The string tying together what she's always been told and what she's always felt. That God loves everyone, but some people get shit deals. That all men are created equal, but some walk by others dying on the street. Those beliefs, that religion she held and the ideals of her country, those don't just go away one day after you hear them for your whole life. They are the underpinning of it. Rather, what they mean shifts. We typically think of equality as a system of assistance, like what Rock tries to do for those captured by his city to raise the disadvantaged up. But equality doesn't denote that everyone has a good life, simply that they have the same life. If everyone is dragged down to the lowest level, then all men are finally created equal just the same. Every person has the same test laid out before them, access to the same guns that overcome physical strength, the most balanced chance to succeed as possible. It worked for a neglected kid, right? A terrible world might make our ideals true easier than a good one. And this is the easier way to achieve that ideal because of how much more complex help is than hate. Think of all the times where Rock goes to try and help someone, like Yukio, a young Japanese girl caught in her Yakuza family's line of succession. He takes a huge risk in trying to get Balalaika, a war maniac who describes herself as,
"What I seek is destruction and domination. I'm only interested in how much I can dance in the pit of hell when it's all over."
to back off, leading to guns in his face when he asks for peace, which she would never accept, and blood on his hands when he asks for war, to decimate Yukio's clan so much that she has nothing left to lead her into a criminal life. He has to dance around the desires of the most dangerous people, putting his own life on the line and risk it all because that's what saving someone means. removing all the wills which seek to do them harm, or the paths by which those wills are expressed. It demands that one first desire to help them, and then that they make everyone else stop desiring to hurt them. In short, help is a decision of many people, including even the will of the one being helped, as Yukio resists his efforts, throwing herself into this criminal life and dying anyway, rendering all of Rock's efforts pointless. In trying to help, all he did was cause more death than there would have been. Help is complicated, but hate is simple. Hate is just one of those wills trying to hurt them, a bullet to the head which skipped past social conditions, history, and relationships, a piece of metal that cuts through all of the complexity to simply and easily enact one's will over another. Anyone can pick up a gun and do it. Anyone can be hit by a bullet in the face just the same. That violence she follows is not just a path to equality, it is the simplest path to equality. But this is also an appealing mindset to her because of how simple it makes everything, not just helping and hurting. Take the complexities of the world Rock came from, the business-minded culture of 90s Japan, a mess of relationships and work and long-standing principles all at once. He describes a complicated mess where he has to bow his head to and get his ass kicked by his boss, who then does the same to the guy above him, who then does the same to the guy above him. It's a place where you're forced to go for drinks after work and get drunk, where your hours say one thing on paper but another in practice, and everyone knows it but no one admits it. We see some of it when he returns to Japan to translate for Balalaika, intimate meetings where mob bosses spend an hour sending veiled threats at each other and calling it negotiation, only to then spend hours afterwards socializing to build bonds, but it's really just an even more casual extension of the process that everyone hates but still does anyway. It's a web of social expectations and relationships, work culture and unspoken rules and traditions, and for what, really? The image we get of Okajima the businessman is a miserable one, where he's simply coping eternal with his lack of power and dying a slow, undignified death of kissing ass for a living. A large part of Rock's arc is understanding that Rowena and the world he knew aren't really that different. Yes, his was more pleasant, but it was still run by evil people with selfish goals. It was still at the expense of the lowest rungs. It was just made more palatable with an illusion of choice, a chance for those kissing ass to one day have theirs kissed instead, but at the cost of any semblance of a home life just like Rock's boss's boss, who gets home late and has to ignore his family to watch the stocks to keep up. Like a cyberpunk nightmare, no one is free, even at the top, but there are still 1,000 layers of complexity for them to wonder if it's their fault or not, to hope maybe it could change, to torture themselves over the possibilities. Complexity is required for this pain. Rowena has the same end result, but without the pleasantries, in a way making it more honest in simplicity. Without having a deep understanding of the specific culture, everyone can still get a clear message of what's happening because it's so blunt and violent. There's nothing to analyze, no jockeying for advantage, it's all done with cold steel or bruised flesh. When something is your fault, when you mess up, you know it. And when it isn't, you know it too, by whether you're dead or alive. There's a little question of, did I make the right choice? Did I live my life right? Because if you're still here, then you did something right, according to these simple rules of power at least. Nothing in this city leaves one wondering. This is why Revy loves it, an answer to a complex world. Why did she end up with a terrible father? Why was she born disadvantaged in this time and place? Why couldn't there have just been one person willing to help? Was she just not worth it? That uncertainty found in these questions is the killer, that kind of thing that made Rock so miserable, and the lack of it is what makes Revy so joyous in comparison. She has an answer. It just was. As she says,
both of these are just things and nothing more.
And now she uses that answer, guns and money, to sit atop the world that once held her down, value found in enacting hate for its own sake. But where things really get interesting is that I think all this has a flaw we've been ignoring. The things that happened to her didn't really happen just because. New York is a definitive time and place. It has a history that can be studied, the decisions of leaders and policies, and how they made it what it was, how that made her situation what it was. Her father has a story somewhere in there, some chain of events to make him a horrible man. These things aren't just because, they're simply so complicated that they appear to be random chaos if one doesn't look too closely, if one gives up understanding and trying to fix them. And so those benefits of her mindset that we covered aren't actually the result, but rather the reason why it's chosen to begin with, to then reinforce that and make it all seem like it makes sense. It's so that one refuses to look closely expressly to avoid complexity and its pains, not because it creates equality. It's pretty obvious in the statement she made about stripping away the meaning of things. That line gives away the game, because if meaning is being stripped away, then that means it was there and is simply being removed. Those medals that she and Rock argue over on a World War II submarine, him saying that they shouldn't rob the corpses of them because of what they could mean to the families, proves how wrong she is. While Revy says they're just things, Rock simply believing that they could be more is all the proof needed that they are, that in a museum they're a lesson about our history, that in the hands of the families they're remembrance of the man they loved in a system they should hate. They're metal turned into medals, rough rock removed from the ground, shaped and polished and given out to commemorate some event found meaningful. Inherently, these things cannot simply be things by their very shaping. Even the cold, hard cash that people will pay for them, which she claims as her evidence, is still far from objective. Why are they valuable to those people? It's not for their metal, it's for the metal in that shape and with that age, the rarity of it. Find a cache of 1,000 of them and suddenly these are worthless. That's true even for the objective qualities, the material they're made out of. To a country with a wealth of a specific resource, that resource is dirt, traded for ones they don't naturally have. And even the money itself, it's just the backing of a government stating that this piece of paper, that these numbers in a bank account are worth something. It's found not in physicality, but in collective belief. And that if we all stopped using that currency, it wouldn't mean shit. There is little simple objectivity to the world. Everything we view as such is simply old enough that we have forgot its subjective origins. And we choose to hate exactly to try and kill that subjectivity, to try and reduce the world down so that it can't exist. Yes, the world Rock is from has many flaws, and the self is often abused for corporate overlords to stuff their pockets and avoid responsibility, but also that questioning it brings is because it has widened our possibilities. A society where free will, the chance to do anything, is replaced with freedom, the guarantee to do many things. It's painful because it opens up our ability to choose, because it forces us to look at ourselves in a bigger context, our self simply more stuffed with possibilities than in these simple places like Roanapur. Part of why there's no questioning of the self there isn't because it's honest, it's because it kills you before you can do anything about it, because it demands conformity to the principles in a stricter fashion. Every single person here says when an outsider shows up that they will be dead within nights because they don't know the traditions, the big names and faces and unspoken rules of who not to fuck with. Isn't that just Rock's world but with violence? In his, you succeed by having a corporate job, but you can survive without one. In Roanapur, you go against the established order and you're simply killed. That's only honesty if you trick yourself. To consider the medal's value is to admit to yourself that you have power in shaping the world, that there is some answer to how to make things better, but that we have to try for it, try real damn hard because the world is subjective at its core. In fear of this, we state, their curtains are blue because they're blue, really meaning, I don't feel like trying. We see that the point is expressly to avoid thought in the most pure, perfected form of her mindset, literal combat. The reason why she loves it so much, why it makes her light up and smile to enact death, is because of this single line.
Once the fighting begins, our instincts will take over and that'll be it.
When you're fighting for your life, there's no room to think about if someone loves you or who you really are, because your body is throwing every available resource into not dying, because each bit of concentration on something else is a moment of delay and an opening for the enemy. To manage your own muscles and to predict what theirs will do, to remember each moment of training and conditioning under the threat of instantaneous death, it requires every faculty. This is all shown when Ginji, the protector of Yukio, is facing Revy down and has a moment of delay when she speaks emotionally about their time together. That pang of guilt and regret it gives him, that she's only here right now in the underworld because she loves him, holds his strike back just long enough for Revy to block and throw her own, even as he'd put her in the worst position she'd ever been in just moments before.
Those words that you made her say back there. In the end, that was the bullet that killed him.
Combat is a space where one is justified in casting off every single painful thought, and so she loves it endlessly for that escape. We find more proof of this in what happens when she can't fight, shot through both arms in Roberta's blood trail. With Rock taking over the operation, in an attempt to screw the city out of existence, she has little to do, just waiting around the boat while others take up arms. It's only here, berated by someone who did better that we'll discuss in a moment, and with the time to actually think for the first time in, well, forever, that we see her actual past instead of just vague glimpses. We, as the viewer, finally get to see all the pain because she is finally aware enough of it to make it appear clearly, to not push down the thought before it moves from outside of that window in the street to inside of it. And it hurts her. She's not her usually murderously fun self, instead pouting about in the cabin, not eating, sleeping, or doing anything. It's depressing to think about such horrible things, exactly why she avoided it. Seeing what she goes through right here sets in stone why she acts the way she does. It's all to never have these kinds of moments. Of course, not doing so is what keeps her a horrible person, though, and to some extent what keeps her in a horrible situation just the same. No one can be blamed for their birth. Revy was given a terrible childhood and she couldn't do anything about that. It makes her understandable why she does awful things herself. But we also must hold true that even if it explains her behavior and garners sympathy, it does not excuse the role she's played in her own life, that everyone is supposed to grow up and mature and realize the faults of these things, that she perpetuates onto others exactly what was done to her. Once she could help it, she became somewhat at fault. We find this in how she secretly wishes to escape Roanapur, that is, the desire to be better, that she knows deep down it is what everyone should want, but never lets herself be the kind of person who could find it, waiting as the tragic heroine for a guide instead. After that medal discussion, where Rock questions her ideals, she's in a horrible mood. Horrible enough that when storming a ship, she goes on to kill even the civilian crew without a second thought, emotionlessly murdering in chilling fashion. You'd think that it was just because Rock made her mad, but that wouldn't be quite correct, seen a couple episodes later. Having just saved a deal with his words that would have gotten Revy killed with just her guns, Rock and her sit down to a meal where the topic is brought back up. But this time, instead of backing down, Rock steps up, pushing the point that he wasn't wrong during that medal speech, and actually insulting Revy's mindset as he pokes hole after hole in its reasoning. She tries to shoot him like he said, but he moves the gun, and even though she has two, she doesn't try to shoot him again, eventually just backing down, ending the fight in something more akin to a joke, and then kissing him via cigarettes in the back of a police car not 5 minutes later. If she was simply mad at being questioned, if she actually felt what she said, then she would have just killed him here. She would have responded worse to his backbone than his spinelessness. But instead, she almost rewards it. It's because this is what she wanted, not to be capitulated to, but to be proved wrong. Something Dutch says to her backs this up.
In case you haven't noticed, you get Whitman fever every time we get a newcomer on board.
Each new member is an opportunity, a chance that someone from the outside world won't fall to Roanapur, but will actually survive it instead, find themselves in the muck yet maintain their ideals, show that it is somewhere which can be escaped. Every time someone joins, this is made possible, but they'd have to be pretty strong to do it, and so she sets the conditions for their strength. She threatens to kill them, puts them in danger to see if they'll resist, but only because she controls it, because she knows she wouldn't really kill them, while at the same time she's by their side, protecting them from the danger of others. It's a little pocket of safety without being totally isolated from Roanapur, a taste to slowly let them develop their skills. And then despite this, they fail, becoming either dead outright or just another of the living dead, someone losing their own way to the cities. They become proof of the thing she doesn't want. That she was right, there is no escape. This is the natural order. It makes her feel certain, but deep down that certainty hurts. To be right, but only about the thing you hate most. So she goes on her killing spree, engaging in the perfected enactment of her ideals to choke down any kind of feeling. This is why, when Rock finally stands up to her, she has a better reaction than when he backed down. The chance is still alive. Someone from that kind of world who knows its methods, who could take her with him without her having to go at it alone and terrified, learning a new way of life on nothing more than her intent, because as she says when they're together in Japan,
Your home is a good place, but it's so far away, I could never reach it. For a second there, I think I even forgot that I don't know how to live anywhere else.
Because she never thinks about who she is, never works on herself, says that all the pleasantries are bullshit, this is the only option that feels viable. For someone else to show her what to do rather than finding it herself. She gets to wish for a better future, but has every excuse not to work for it herself. That's what her hate allows. What makes that moment on the ship remembering her past even more painful is that it came about from someone showing that Revy did this to herself to a degree. A girl who proves that despite similar beginnings, if Revy tried, it could have been different. That's Fabiola, the second maid to the Lovelace family who comes with its head, Garcia, to track down and save the first maid, Roberta. Revy believes that she and Fabiola are the same, saying to her,
"You said that we're different, so tell me how we're different exactly."
And sure, they came from similarly terrible situations. For Fabiola, not NYC, but the poorest neighborhoods of Caracas, Venezuela, a place where, just like Revy, she was beaten by her family and ignored by the police at best, where opportunity simply never seemed to exist. Yet what Revy says is a pretty blind statement. I mean, take a moment like this, where Revy lies to a dying man, killing him when she promised him care in exchange for information, and Fabiola loses it, ready to throw her own life away just to end Revy's in total rage at how evil she could be. These people are clearly not the same. But Revy believes they are because once she knows they have a similar past, they have to be the same. If not, then Revy can't say her evil is the natural result anymore. Fabiola had many of the same conditions, but the difference is that she was, and is still willing to see something subjective in all of this. When Revy says,
"What happens is just what happens,"
it's her focusing on objectivity, that a beating is a beating and nothing more. But isn't there a reason behind every action? People don't do something just because, as we said earlier. Even if the reasoning seems nonsensical, somewhere in there it follows the logic of history and situation and desire, even if that logic is wrong and terrible. This is what Fabiola embraces when she speaks about why she was hit, saying it was because she stole a DVD player for her younger brother. She tried to do something kind for him, and her mother harmed her for it instead, punishing a sin with the violence of the Old Testament. This is a terrible thing. To hit one's own child, to hit one at all, anyone's anywhere, is unforgivable. There are 1,000 better ways to deal with that behavior. But despite all of that, Fabiola takes it all as an act which has love somewhere within it, a mother trying to teach her daughter an ideal of honesty through harsh consequences for breaking it. Considering that intent, it takes an absolutely detestable action she would be justified in hating and turns it into something better somehow, into a lesson she takes to heart. I don't think that would ever work in reality, but the logic makes sense. We have to embrace the subjective qualities of the world to make it better. Revy's idea, where everything is objective, is letting it all be terrible, taking our ability to interpret the world, the importance of her will, and throwing it away for the reward of simplicity, no self, and no dreams. Fabiola's idea, embracing subjectivity, is taking everything which should be horrible and through our ability to interpret, through the importance of our will, making them better. At the cost of our effort, we receive a world where kindness can still exist. Thankfully, the show admits this doesn't simply make one's life okay, magically pull them out of hatred through their own will. Such an idea would be nonsense. As Fabiola says,
"You and I are a lot alike. It's true we both came from similar backgrounds. The difference is who we encountered in life."
Because she only gets to be this better person, in this better situation, because of the Lovelace family, who were willing to hire her somewhere else. Without them, she would still be a child in one of the poorest areas in the world, being hit, probably slowly losing the ability to see good in anything, just like Revy. The only thing her will did was keep her open to kindness, believing that it still existed so that when it did come around, she could recognize it and accept it, going with the Lovelaces because she knew they were good, where Revy missed her chance to go with Rock, slowly pulling him down into the muck instead. Now it's too late. Because she never knew the shape of kindness, the shape of good, she simply couldn't recognize in him and act on it. We have to know its shape to know when it's around, after all, don't we? We don't magically save ourselves from terrible situations just from wanting to. We don't break out of depression just by choosing to be happy. I could spend a whole video just listing out problems with that idea. But even so, just like currency, once we stop believing in something, it stops existing. Part of that pain Revy is avoiding is the pain of this contradiction, that we must witness hate and yet believe in kindness if we ever want that to stop. It's hard, it's difficult, awful work, that's what the pain is. But what else can we do? Be like her and limit ourselves? Simplify ourselves so much that firing a gun at someone's face feels good? I'll take the office job over that any day. The world most of us know, Rock's world, is full of its flaws. Right now, goddamn is it full of so many. But you know where those flaws begin? They begin from people like Revy. People who harp on about what's natural while they trade a number on a digital screen that represents a colorful piece of paper for a bottle of pressurized syrup water. People who believe that violence is equality simply because everyone has access to the tools of it. People who tear down the unique selves of others to reinforce a standard because it means they don't have to think about them fucking selves. People who simplify, who seek to return to a past that never existed because the idea of the past is simpler than the uncertainty of the future. The reason why Rock's world sucks is because there are people trying to make it into Revy's through class, through race, through nationality, through labels and roles that serve the purpose of simplification and nothing more. That they use polite force to create these things, and once they exist, point to some false history to say, look, they always did. You know, the one thing I'll give Revy, at least she has the decency to pick up the fucking gun and kill me herself. That's 1 ounce of honesty she carries. While her hate is a mask, she doesn't mask her hate in rules and regulations, which bastardize the spirit of togetherness which made society possible to fucking begin with. That's the thing which sucks about complexity. When people use it to force their own simplicity on or above you. When every single person can comprehend from the goddamn age of like 5 years old that you treat others the way you want to be treated, but then some willfully forget it because the idea of a complicated thoughts hurts their simple fucking heads. If hate is a shield, then we have a sword to fight it. At the root of all much more complicated solutions is one thing: kindness, the will to give and the willingness to receive alike. In requiring both of those things, its complexity demands togetherness, which breeds awareness. That if we are truly active in our quest of kindness, not just sitting at home alone but searching for issues, trying to know its shape, we will necessarily be witnessed by and witness others. As such, we become aware of the issues that they face, the things which worry them. We begin to care for those issues because the anxiety and pain it causes in people we know, causing anxiety and pain in us because we care about them. We see what will be left outside of our own perspective, and while it hurts, we gain something in exchange. We gain love, a greater reward for our greater risk. Togetherness makes awareness, makes togetherness, makes awareness. We cannot let isolation reign, for isolation is simplicity. Do not go quietly. Do not make hate simple to enact. Make it so complicated, so ugly, that those simple fucking minds which demand it will turn away in fear from the effort, the complexity it requires. Make harm against immigrants harm against nationals. Make harm against gay people harm against straight people. Make harm against black people harm against white people by finding these people and loving them. Introducing the possibility for pain into your life so that you stand up, speak, fight, and make it impossible for someone vulnerable to simply be taken away. Make taking from them taking from you. If you're sitting there wondering how to help, ask. Ask someone a question and start to talk, and keep talking until you like, and keep liking until you love enough to stand arm in fucking arm with them. Make it difficult. Let nothing be fucking simple.